I'm asking for the vote of every African American citizen. The Democratic Party has failed and betrayed the African American community.
He's touched on something here that is getting a lot of attention and a lot of conversation given what we've seen going on in the inner cities in this country. Let's talk about this with Xavier Pope, a sports and entertainment attorney, Jonna Spilbor, a former prosecutor, and Steve Cardian, former New York City chief investigator and former NYPD detective. Xavier, let me start with you. You heard the outreach last night from Donald Trump saying to African Americans in cities like Milwaukee, Democratic leadership has let you down. They've promised you things, and you show up and vote for them when the time comes, but they don't follow through on those promises. What do you think about that?
I think Donald Trump should deliver on a promise, and by making one. What is Donald Trump going to do to change the mind of African American voters who have historically voted Democrat for years? What is the plan that Donald Trump plans to put forward? We want to hear more than rhetoric. We want to hear plans.
I understand what you're saying, but for a moment, let's look back at what has happened, because that's what he's referring to. He's saying that in these cities like Milwaukee, where they've had, I think, almost 100 years, maybe more than 100 years of Democratic leadership, the problems have only increased for African Americans in those cities in terms of unemployment, in terms of the breakdown of the family. So he's saying, look, you've been promised all these things, but you haven't gotten the handout, essentially. You haven't gotten the help, or the handout hasn't done what it was supposed to do, which was to, build people up and help them to better their own lives. I mean, I would love for you to address that. Is it a failure of Democratic leadership in these communities or not, in your opinion?
I think there is a disconnect in our politics in this country. Donald Trump is addressing some of the worst fears of African Americans and saying, come vote for me because you've been failed by Democratic leadership. That's not the point. The point, Martha, is what is Donald Trump going to do? He can talk all he wants.
But I'm asking you, hold on, Xavier, because you're dodging my question here. I'm asking you, do you feel that the Democratic leadership in places like Detroit and Milwaukee and Baltimore, have they done what they promised to do for the African American community? Are you satisfied? Are you happy with the way with the work they've done? That's the first question. Can you answer that?
My answer to that, Martha, is what is Donald Trump going to do?
No, that's not an answer. That's not an answer.
That's an absolute
I'm saying look at the last 50 years, Xavier, in these cities, okay? Because, as you say, African Americans have routinely elected Democratic officials in these areas, okay? So I'm saying to you, when you look at it, with an open mind, do you think they've gotten what they asked for, or have they just given their vote and not gotten anything back for it, essentially?
Martha, I'll toss this back to you. What is the Republican response? What is Donald Trump's response?
I've tried 3 times to get an answer about whether or not you think that they've done a good job.
We have to move forward. We can't keep looking backward. That's the
argument. The argument is, should African American people look at another option politically and say, I wonder if that might work better? They absolutely should look at another option. They should look at all the options. No one should just check off Democrat and make their vote that way. My point is, people want to hear plans in this election. People are tired of rhetoric. People are tired of he said, she said. People want solutions. Like everyone in your audience that's watching this program right now, they want to know how to get back to work. Whether it's in small town America or whether it's in urban America. How to improve education. How to create jobs. How to improve our economy. How to improve our standing in the world. Those are the important questions to be answered. And so instead of blaming and going back and forth, people need solutions and they need plans. And Donald Trump needs to present that. So then he could get the votes that he's seeking, Martha. All right. Let's see what Jonna and Steve think about this. Jonna, let me start with you. You heard the back and forth there, and you've heard what Donald Trump has said. What do you think?
Right. I think what Donald